Okay, good morning, gang. So good to be with you here on Saturday morning for Bible study at Calvary Chapel Lake Stevens. We again are in the Old Testament. If you'd grab your Bibles, turn to the book of Joshua. We are at the time when the children of Israel are crossing over into the Promised Land. Moses has handed off the leadership of the nation to Joshua. Joshua was taking them across the Jordan into the Promised Land. And up till this point, we're going to begin at the end of Joshua 14 here today. We finished up last week in the lesson of city of Shiloh going to Caleb, one of the original 12 spies. Joshua and Caleb being the two faithful of the 12 spies. And what we've seen up to this point here in the from verse 10 on, the exploits, the capturing of cities in the nation, and it talks about the various cities captured, the various kings conquered, and that brings us up to today. We'll begin in earnest chapter 15, the designation of the various tribes and their places in the Promised Land. But we're going to begin with a little reminder of Caleb. Caleb was such a faithful fella, following the Lord his God fully. Chapter 14, verse 14 talks about how he followed the Lord his God fully. It's really a great example. And he ended up with, chapter 14, verse 13, Hebron. Hebron was a prominent city in the Promised Land. Until the establishment of Jerusalem, Hebron was the place that people made pilgrimage to do offerings and sacrifice. The reason is the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, was set up in Hebron. The ark was placed in Hebron. Hebron was given to Caleb. That's what chapter 14 tells us the story about how Caleb reminded Joshua, Moses promised me this land. I want to go get it. And Joshua commissioned him, said, go on. And he went, and it was a important place there in what's called Samaria, on the current west bank of the Jordan River, that is inhabited by a lot of Palestinians. PLO has its, ruling city there, not far from Hebron. Hebron was a place that was not just important in those days. Like I said, the tabernacle was there, and it was there for several hundred years. I think it's 369 years, if I remember right. The tabernacle was there, the ark was there, all the way till the time that they decided they would pick up the ark and take it into battle with the Philistines, and then the Philistines captured the ark. And later on, David went and captured back the ark, eventually finding the righteous way to bring it into the city of David. He put it into a tent, and there was like a smaller tabernacle tent area where the ark stayed until Jerusalem was built under Solomon's reign, and the ark was brought into the temple. But Hebron was a very important city. I remember going to Hebron. I can't remember what year. It was the early 90s probably. We were doing a tour in Israel, And it's the only time actually I've ever been there. They have closed it down. Now it's part of the West Bank and it's completely Arab territories. But we found the place where they would come and have celebrations of feasts, and that's where it was just an important city. It was also one of the cities of refuge. We'll talk about the cities of refuge today as well. So, beginning in chapter 15, you have designations of areas for the tribes to go in and possess in the promised land. Chapter 15 is for the sons of Judah, you see in verse 1. So it tells them what their area would be. Caleb's portion was in there, verse 13. It was it's called Hebron, but the previous name, verse 13, is Kiriath Arba. And Arba was the giant of the sons of Anak. I think I talked to you about that last week. It was a significant city, not just for Israel, but even prior to that, significant for the Canaanite people group that were there. And Caleb, here's an interesting story. Chapter 15, verse 16. Caleb said, "The one who attacks Kiriath Sepher and captures it, I will give him Axa, my daughter, as a wife." And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, brother of Caleb. Othniel would have been the nephew of Caleb. He went and captured that city, and he ended up with his cousin for a wife. They were kissing cousins. And he actually, Othniel, becomes important in the nation. He becomes one of the judges of Israel. We'll learn that when we hit the book of Judges. But Axa, the daughter, Caleb's daughter, came to Caleb. It says verse 18, and she came to him. She persuaded him, his Othniel, and she alighted from a donkey, and Caleb said to her, he's talking to his daughter, "What do you want?" I can see that conversation. I've had conversations like that with my own daughter. "What do you want, honey? Can I help you?" And she said to him, "Give me a blessing, Daddy. Give me a blessing." This is a daddy-daughter thing. I like this story. And she says, "You have given the land of the Negev. Give me also springs of water." And so, his daughter, persuasive little thing, he ended up giving her springs of water for that area of Hebron. And I can't describe this to you any more clear than this. Springs of water were as rich as gold or silver or any other mineral, because the land was an arid land. It was a dry land. It was a desert land, and they needed water. And most of this area there on the west bank of the Jordan is at that point is about 300 feet below sea level, which means they didn't have big runoff of water coming down. They had the Jordan River, which was fed by 5 springs up in the north. But what they needed was to have localized springs of water, artesian wells, we would call them. And those springs of water made the land inhabitable. It's like here this week, I think today, it's supposed to hit triple digits, and you need air conditioning. You can't hardly live in hot, I think about Florida or, some of the desert areas in California. You can't live there without air conditioning. They couldn't live and have a wonderful city without springs of water. And so Caleb and his daughter Aksha, they worked it out to where they could have springs of water. I just think that's one of the great stories. I have to take time and talk about it. Just reminds me of my own daughter. Sorry, a little dehydrated. We had our legacy breakfast this morning, and we were cooking in the kitchen. It was hot, and I sweat a little bit and wanted to have some hydration. Okay, they go on. Joshua goes on and he clarifies the territories in the promised land that were for the varied tribes. And he talks about chapter 16, the sons of Joseph, verse 4, which is Manasseh and Ephraim. Joseph had sons when he lived in Egypt. And remember Jacob when he came and he found Joseph, oh, my lost son. And he said, you're not only my son, your sons are also my sons. And so it went from 12 tribal lands to 14 tribal lands. And it's the 12 tribes of Israel plus Manasseh and Ephraim. And so they were designated certain areas. They had spots in the tribal land. If you look on the maps given to the various tribes, you'll find 13. It's because there's 12 plus 2 minus 1. The 2 is Manasseh and Ephraim, minus 1 was Joseph. And then you have to take out the Levites because they didn't have a designated land. They were spread out through all the land. So there you are, chapter 16, designated spots for Manasseh and Ephraim. And chapter 17, you get a story of maybe the selfishness, wouldn't it use the word selfishness, of Manasseh and Ephraim. Look at chapter 17, verse 14. And the sons of Joseph spoke to Joshua, saying, why have you given me only one lot and one portion for an inheritance, since I am numerous? And Joshua said, verse 15, if you are a numerous people, then go up to the forest. Clear a place for yourself there in the land of the Perizzites for Ephraim, or Rephaim, since the hill country of Ephraim is too narrow for you. And the sons of Joseph said, the hill country is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites who live in the valley who have chariots of iron, both those who are in Bethshan and its towns, and those who are in the valley of Jezreel. And Joshua said to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and Manasseh, you are a numerous people and have great power. You shall not have one lot. You shall not have one lot only, but the hill country shall be yours. For though it is a forest, you shall clear it, and to its farthest borders it shall be yours. For you shall drive out the Canaanites, even though they have chariots of iron, even though they are strong. You must get busy. And I wrote in my Bible here, you must not be spoiled. Joshua was giving them a blessing, but he wasn't going to let them be spoiled. Be strong. If you are, large and powerful, then go out and get it. And show yourself to be strong. Chapter 18, you have a gathering at Shiloh. This is the first real gathering here at Shiloh. It says, the whole congregation of the sons of Israel assembled themselves at Shiloh. They set up the tent of meeting there, and the land was subdued before them. That's where they put the Ark of the Covenant, and it remained there among the sons of Israel, the varied tribes, 7 tribes that were divided around as an inheritance. And then Joshua exhorts them, chapter 18, verse 3. How long will you put off entering and taking possession of the land which the Lord your God, the God of your fathers, has given you? Provide for yourself 3 men from each tribe, and send them that they may arise, walk through the land, write a description according to their inheritance, and have them return to me. Let's get a plan. Let's get it going. So he's exhorting them to get out and chart out the territory. So in chapter 18, verse 7, Gad, Reuben, half tribe of Manasseh. And the reason why it's half tribe is because half of the Manasseh guys stayed on the other side, they have a inheritance given to them on the other side of the Jordan River, the eastern side. They're part of the Transjordan group. That is Gad, Reuben, and the half tribe of Manasseh. Those 3 tribes are the ones who will eventually be going over there to take their land on the eastern side of the Jordan River. But for the Levites, let's point this out again, verse 7, they have no inheritance because the priesthood of the Lord is their inheritance. It says back in chapter 13, I think, that the priests have the inheritance of God himself, and then also the offerings that the people would give. And then as well in chapter 18, he talks to the tribe of Benjamin, verse 11, and he exhorts them to chart out their area and get a plan, get rolling. That's chapter 18. Okay. Then, chapter 19, he talks to Simeon and their tribe. Zebulun, verse 10, and their tribe, verse 17, Issachar, and verse 24, Asher, verse 32, Naphtali, and verse 40, Dan. He gives them all the designation of what area is going to be theirs and tells them, this is your area, these are your borders. Get busy and enter in and take possession. Verse 49, it says of chapter 19, when they finished apportioning the land for inheritance, the sons of Israel gave an inheritance in the midst to Joshua and the son of Nun. So Joshua had a little piece too. And they finished, verse 51, finished dividing the land. So now they've done their divisions. Don't forget to drink a lot of water today, guys. It's going to be hot. Chapter 20, we begin the designations of the cities of refuge. And then the cities, chapter 21 is the cities of Levi. The cities of refuge were spoken of back in the book of Numbers. There was going to be 6 different cities of refuge, and they were for, chapter 20, verse 3, any manslayer who kills a person unintentionally without premeditation. He may flee to these cities of refuge, and they will become a refuge from the avenger of blood. The avenger of blood is any family member who says, if you kill a member of my family, I'm going to come and kill you. But if you go to the city of refuge and you stay there, and you live there and you don't launch out on your own, then you're protected. The people will see to it that you're protected, and they'll watch out for you. And then they spread them out. Let me say one more thing about the avengers of blood. In verse 5, if the avenger of blood pursues him, they shall not deliver the manslayer into his hand, because he struck his neighbor without premeditation and did not hate him beforehand. I like that about the justice system in Israel. They look to motive for death if somebody killed someone. If it was murder, it wasn't considered premeditated murder. It was called manslaughter. And there was punishment for it if you weren't at a city of refuge. But you had to live in a certain spot, or else you're up for grabs. And so they made these various cities, 6 of them, chapter 20, verse 7. These cities are Kadesh in Galilee, the northern portion. In the hill country of Naphtali, Shechem. In the hill country of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, which is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah. So there's the 3 cities there to the north, and to the beyond the Jordan, east of Jericho, there was designated 3 other cities for the Transjordan guys. Bezer in the wilderness plain from the tribe of Reuben, Ramoth in Gilead from the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan from the tribe of Manasseh. Those are for the Transjordan, the eastern side of the Jordan River tribes that were living over there. So there was 3 cities in the Promised Land, 3 cities in the Transjordan area, promised area. Does that make total sense to you? This city of refuge thing, we've never seen it in our country. It's a way of designating an area for people who have had something that they should be guilty for, that they have done bad, killed someone. But they're spared from a penalty, a death penalty, so long as they live in this area. And other countries have had areas that are kind of like cities of refuge. I know the UK, they had in their territories of their gatherings of countries that they had conquered, they had penal colonies in, I think it's New Zealand. They used it as a penal colony. It's that kind of thing. So this is what they had for the cities of refuge. Chapter 21. These are the cities of the Levites. And I don't want to go through all these specific cities. It's too tedious. If you read through chapter 21, you're going to see there's 48 different cities for the Levites. And they are to be all around the whole nation so that people could find themselves ministry folks, people who would know the scriptures, know the Torah, and be able to give judgments for God, for the people. And you know how the Jewish folks, they always come to the priest and say, Rabbi, and they want to have assistance with guidance. We have that sort of thing in that we have ministry teams as Christians, but we don't live in certain cities. We're all over the place, and we interact with each other. And so there's these 48 different cities in chapter 21. Verse 41, it says, all the cities of the Levites in the midst of the possession of the sons of Israel were 48 cities with their pasture lands, so they could raise flocks. These cities each had its surrounding pasture lands, and thus it was all these cities. And the Lord gave Israel all the land which he had swore to give their fathers, They possessed it and lived in it. And the Lord gave them rest on every side, according to all that he had sworn to their fathers. Isn't that great? And not one of the good promises, verse 45, which the Lord had made to the house of Israel failed. All of them came to pass. God was true to his word. It's very special. Thank you, Lord, for being faithful to Israel. You're faithful to us as believers in Christ. Okay, we've got a few minutes. I want to get started in chapter 22. I want to go up through verse 9. Joshua summoned all the Reubenites, the Gadites, the half-tribe of Manasseh, and said to them, "You have kept all that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you. You have listened to my voice and all that I commanded you. You have not forsaken your brothers these many days to this day, but have kept the charge of your commandment of the Lord your God." You know what that is? That's commendation. I think it's really important for us to commend people when they've done good. Even if you don't necessarily like the way they did their chores, it's not up to you. It's up to God. It's between them and God. And when they perform, you're supposed to commend them, say, "Good job. Way to go. You have listened. You have kept. You have not forsaken." Excellent job. I think it's good for us to commend people. "And now the Lord your God has given you rest, given rest to your brothers, just as he spoke to them. Therefore, turn now and go to your tents, to the land of your possession. Go to that Transjordan area on the east side of the Jordan River, in the land which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you beyond the Jordan. Only be very careful to observe the commandment and the law which the Lord, the servant of Moses, commanded you, to love the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, and to keep his commandments, and to hold fast to him and serve him with all your heart, soul, and with all your heart and with all your soul." So he gives them this laundry list of things to do. Love, walk, keep, hold, and serve. Hang tight to God as you go and you build your life. And I would say this to all of us as believers. Go and build your life. Don't be a pauper. Don't be a person living in a bridge. You know, nowadays there's so many homeless people just settling for less than what they could. Rise up, go in, conquer, grab a hold of promised land. Live in the Lord's blessing. But as you do, don't forget to do these things that he has given to us, which have to do with just love and relationship, walking in his ways, keeping his commandments, holding fast to him and serving him. It's really, really important to, I believe this, in your life, you have to do a lot of conquering. You have to conquer yourself so that you can have good character. And then I think you have to go conquer a little bit of the world in order to have provision. You have to have a career. And then you have to conquer a little bit financially. You have to secure a home. You can't do that without conquering financially. You have to set up a little bit of your own kingdom here on earth. But as you're doing it, here's one thing I should say. You have to conquer in the area of marriage and family. You have to be successful in having long, enduring relationship in marriage and with parenting. And kids will give you a run for your money. I'll tell you what. Not necessarily that kids are all bad. They're just challenging to raise. So as you go, make sure that you live in his blessing and you love him and you have a relationship with him and you walk with him and you serve him and carve out a little niche for you and your family. Have a good family. Be a good example of kingdom livers. Father, thank you for blessing us, giving us promise, and giving us strength to live for you in a world that sometimes is contrary.